Cody Rhodes confronts Seth Rollins in explosive WWE segment. What Cody Rhodes just said to Seth Rollins on live television has WWE officials in absolute panic mode, and the words that came out of the American Nightmare's mouth were so shocking, so brutally honest, and so career-damaging that NBC executives are already receiving complaints from sponsors who think WWE just crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. This wasn't your typical wrestling confrontation where two superstars trade insults and promise to beat each other at the next pay-per-view. This was Cody Rhodes systematically exposing every dirty secret, every backstage manipulation, and every hypocritical move that Seth Rollins has made over the past decade. And he did it with receipts, with evidence, and with such surgical precision that even Seth's closest allies in the locker room are reportedly reconsidering their loyalty to him. But here's what's going to absolutely enrage you. Seth Rollins walked into that segment thinking he was going to embarrass Cody Rhodes and position himself as the locker room leader who calls out the American Nightmare's so-called selfishness. Instead, he got verbally destroyed so completely that multiple wrestlers have already changed their WrestleMania plans just to avoid being associated with him. The segment started innocently enough, with Seth calling out Cody for abandoning WWE when things got tough and only coming back when the path to the championship was clear. Standard wrestling promo material that the WWE Universe has heard 1,000 times before. But what Seth didn't know was that Cody Rhodes had been preparing for this exact confrontation for months, and what he was about to unleash would change everything. Cody's response didn't start with yelling or chest-puffing or any of the typical wrestling theatrics. It started with a single question that made Seth's face go pale on live television. Seth, do you want to have the scripted conversation that production planned, or do you want to talk about what really happened between us and why you're actually out here? That one question changed the entire energy in the arena. The crowd went silent. Commentary stumbled over their words. And Seth Rollins realized in that moment that he had walked into a trap he couldn't escape. Before Seth could respond, Cody continued with a verbal assault so devastating and so loaded with truth that even Paul Heyman was later heard calling it the most dangerous promo I've ever witnessed in 40 years in this business. Cody revealed that Seth had been one of the primary voices backstage who actively lobbied against Cody's return to WWE in 2022. While Seth was publicly talking about respecting Cody's decision to leave and praising his run in AEW, he was privately telling Triple H and other executives that bringing Cody back would be a mistake, that Cody couldn't be trusted with a main event push, and that his ego would disrupt the locker room culture that Seth claimed to have built. But Cody didn't just make allegations. He pulled out his phone and offered to play audio recordings of backstage conversations where Seth was actively working against other wrestlers while positioning himself as their friend and mentor. The look of absolute horror on Seth's face confirmed everything Cody was saying before a single recording was even played. The crowd erupted. Social media exploded. And Seth Rollins stood in that ring realizing that his carefully crafted reputation as a locker room leader and company man was about to be exposed as a complete fabrication. Now here's where it gets even more explosive, and why this segment is already being called the most controversial moment in WWE since the Montreal Screwjob. Cody Rhodes didn't stop at exposing Seth's backstage politics. He went deeper, attacking the very foundation of Seth's entire career and questioning whether any of his accomplishments were actually earned or simply the result of being in the right place at the right time while better wrestlers were being held back. Cody brought up Seth's Shield run and revealed that Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose had both complained to management about Seth taking credit for ideas and strategies that the entire group had developed together. He exposed how Seth had turned on his Shield brothers not because it was best for business, but because he saw an opportunity to position himself as Triple H's chosen protege while his partners were being overlooked. The most brutal moment came when Cody addressed Seth's Universal Championship reign and the injury that forced him to relinquish the title. Cody didn't attack Seth for getting injured, he attacked him for the way he handled his return and the opportunities he demanded while other wrestlers who had worked through injuries got nothing. Cody revealed that Seth had negotiated special return conditions that included immediate main event positioning, creative control over his storylines, and guaranteed championship opportunities, benefits that other injured wrestlers never received because they didn't have Seth's political connections with management. But the nuclear bomb that Cody dropped was about Seth's relationship with Becky Lynch and how Seth allegedly used their relationship to manipulate booking decisions, storyline directions, and opportunities for both of them while other couples in WWE were being kept apart on screen. Cody claimed that Seth had lobbied for Becky to be moved to certain brands, positioned in certain feuds, and given opportunities that other women deserved more, all while presenting himself as someone who believed in equal opportunity and merit-based advancement. The tension in the arena was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Seth's face went from pale to red as his jaw clenched tighter with every word Cody spoke, and the WWE Universe could sense that this had crossed from scripted entertainment into something far more real and far more dangerous. Seth finally tried to respond, but what came out of his mouth made everything worse. Instead of denying Cody's allegations or providing counter-evidence, Seth fell back on the worst possible defense, attacking Cody's decision to leave WWE in the first place. Seth called Cody a quitter who ran away to the minor leagues when he couldn't handle WWE and claimed that everything Cody accomplished in AEW was meaningless because it wasn't in WWE. It was the exact wrong response at the exact wrong moment, and Cody Rhodes was ready to destroy him for it. What happened next is being called the most vicious character assassination ever delivered in a WWE ring. Cody methodically dismantled Seth's entire argument by pointing out that Seth himself had threatened to leave WWE multiple times when he didn't get his way, that he'd used AEW's existence as leverage in his own contract negotiations, and that he'd privately told multiple wrestlers they should consider leaving if they weren't being used properly, but only after Seth had secured his own position at the top of the card. Then Cody dropped the revelation that has the entire wrestling world talking. He claimed that Seth Rollins had been in secret discussions with AEW in 2019 and 2020, exploring what a move to the competition would look like, and only stayed with WWE after being offered a contract and creative control that far exceeded what he deserved based on his drawing power and merchandise sales. The crowd was absolutely losing their minds at this point. Seth looked like he wanted to physically attack Cody but couldn't because he knew that would only prove Cody's points about his inability to handle confrontation without resorting to violence when his manipulation tactics failed. But Cody wasn't finished destroying Seth Rollins. The final phase of his verbal assault targeted the one thing Seth values more than anything else, his reputation as a wrestling genius and locker room leader. Cody revealed that multiple wrestlers had come to him privately over the past year complaining about Seth's backstage behavior, his dismissive attitude toward younger talent, and his tendency to take credit for other people's ideas while blaming them when those ideas didn't work out. He named specific instances where Seth had sabotaged storylines that would have elevated other wrestlers because those storylines would have made Seth look less important by comparison. He exposed how Seth had turned down tag team opportunities with deserving partners because he felt teaming with them would lower his status, even though those partnerships could have created incredible moments for the WWE Universe. The most damaging revelation came when Cody claimed that Seth had actively lobbied against certain wrestlers receiving main event opportunities because he felt threatened by their potential to overshadow him. Cody suggested that some of the most talented performers in WWE had been held back specifically because Seth Rollins used his political influence to protect his own position at the expense of what was best for the company and the fans. By this point, Seth Rollins was visibly shaking with rage and humiliation. His carefully constructed image as the selfless locker room leader who only wanted what was best for WWE had been completely destroyed in less than 15 minutes of television time. But Cody Rhodes saved his most devastating attack for the very end, and it was personal in a way that cut deeper than anything else he'd said during the segment. Cody looked Seth directly in the eyes and said something that will haunt Seth Rollins for the rest of his career. "You've spent your entire career trying to convince everyone that you're the man, Seth. But the truth is, you're just really good at making sure no one else gets the chance to prove they might be better than you. That's not leadership. That's cowardice disguised as ambition." The arena exploded with noise. Half the crowd was chanting Cody's name while the other half was chanting "Burn It Down" in support of Seth, creating a chaotic atmosphere that perfectly captured how divided the WWE Universe had become in just a few minutes. Seth finally snapped and lunged at Cody, but security and referees flooded the ring before any physical contact could occur. The segment ended with both men being separated while they screamed at each other, but the damage had already been done. Cody Rhodes had systematically destroyed Seth Rollins' reputation in front of millions of viewers, and there was no way to put the genie back in the bottle. The aftermath of this segment has been absolutely seismic for WWE and the wrestling industry as a whole. Within hours of the show going off the air, multiple wrestlers posted cryptic messages on social media that seemed to support Cody's claims about Seth's backstage behavior. Some were subtle, just emoji combinations that could be interpreted multiple ways. Others were more direct, with wrestlers liking and sharing posts that criticized Seth's behavior and praised Cody for having the courage to speak truth to power. The most shocking response came from wrestlers who had previously been considered close friends and allies of Seth Rollins. Their silence spoke volumes about the validity of Cody's allegations and suggested that many people in the locker room had been waiting for someone with Cody's credibility and position to finally expose what they'd been experiencing for years. Wrestling journalists and insiders immediately began investigating Cody's claims, and multiple sources have since confirmed that at least some of what Cody said about Seth's backstage politics and behavior is accurate. The specific details are being kept confidential to protect sources, but the overall picture that's emerging supports Cody's characterization of Seth as someone who talks about leadership while practicing self-preservation. WWE officials are reportedly furious about how the segment played out, not because Cody said anything that wasn't true, but because it exposed internal politics and backstage dynamics that the company prefers to keep hidden from public view. There are rumors that both Cody and Seth received intense lectures from management about the difference between working the fans and exposing real business that undermines the company's image. But here's where the situation gets even more complicated. The segment was such a massive ratings success and generated so much social media engagement that WWE can't really punish either wrestler without looking like they're trying to suppress the kind of authentic, emotionally charged content that fans have been begging for. The company is caught between wanting to maintain control over their narrative and capitalizing on a moment that has fans more engaged with WWE programming than they've been in months. That tension is creating fascinating behind-the-scenes drama that's almost as compelling as what we saw on television. The question now becomes, where does WWE go from here with these two superstars, and how do they resolve a conflict that has become far too real for traditional wrestling storytelling to adequately address? Some people backstage are pushing for a straightforward match at the next pay-per-view where Cody and Seth can settle their differences in the ring, but others argue that would be anticlimactic after the intensity of their verbal confrontation, and that WWE needs to let this storyline breathe and develop before rushing to a physical conclusion. The most intriguing possibility being discussed is that WWE uses this real-life tension to create a longer-term storyline that explores the themes of authenticity, legacy, and what it means to be a locker room leader in modern professional wrestling. That kind of nuanced, character-driven storytelling could elevate both wrestlers and create something genuinely special for the WWE universe. But there's also the very real possibility that the relationship between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins has been damaged beyond repair, and that their future interactions will always carry an edge of genuine animosity that makes everyone involved uncomfortable. Here's what makes this situation so fascinating and so unpredictable. Both Cody and Seth are professional enough to work together despite personal issues, but both are also proud enough and secure enough in their positions that they don't have to compromise or back down if they don't want to. That creates a dynamic where WWE has two main event level stars who genuinely don't like each other and aren't afraid to let that dislike show on television. That's either the recipe for incredible television or a backstage disaster waiting to happen, and there's no way to know which until it plays out. Now let me ask you the question that's going to determine how you view everything that happens next. Do you think Cody Rhodes crossed a line by exposing Seth Rollins' real backstage behavior on live television, or was he completely justified in defending himself against Seth's attacks by revealing the truth about who Seth really is? And here's the follow-up question that's even more important. If Cody was telling the truth about Seth's backstage politics and manipulation, how many other wrestlers in WWE are guilty of the same behavior, and should we expect more of these shoot-style confrontations where wrestlers expose real behind-the-scenes drama? Because what we witnessed wasn't just Cody Rhodes confronting Seth Rollins. It was a new era of wrestling storytelling where the line between kayfabe and reality has become so blurred that fans can't tell where the work ends and the shoot begins, and maybe that's exactly what WWE needs to compete in an entertainment landscape where authenticity is more valuable than polish. Tell me in the comments, are you Team Cody or Team Seth after this explosive confrontation? Do you think Cody was justified in exposing Seth's backstage behavior, or did he go too far by airing internal WWE business on live television? And most importantly, do you want to see more confrontations like this where wrestlers drop the scripted promos and speak real truth about each other, or do you prefer traditional wrestling storytelling where everyone stays in character and protects the business? Because after what we just witnessed, there's no going back to the old way of doing things. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins just changed the game, and every other wrestler in WWE is now going to have to decide whether they're brave enough to follow their lead and bring that same level of authenticity to their own storylines. The revolution won't be televised, except it just was, and it was absolutely glorious.